Welcome back to another edition of the Optimized Weekly Market Recap. I'm David Ferreira, and as always for today's recap, we'll take a look at last week's activity in the markets, as well as what we're watching for in the week ahead. Interest rate outlook remains a key focus this week, with the blockbuster March jobs report. Key inflation data is due Wednesday, while investors are also gearing up for results from some of Wall Street's biggest names later in the week. Looking at last week's market performance, the TSX was the strongest performing North American equity index, finishing up 44 basis points. In the US, both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq finished down a little under 1% on the week, while the Dow Jones finished the week down a little under 2%. Looking at sector performance, energy and communications were the strongest performing sectors, while healthcare and real estate were the weakest. And looking at events from this past week, it was a very busy week on the economic data calendar, but the headline release was Friday's employment report. The US economy added a little over 300,000 jobs in March, well ahead of the consensus forecast. Meanwhile, household survey data showed very strong gains in both the labor force and civilian employment, with the net effect being the unemployment rate ticking down to 3.8% in the US. Other economic data last week also brought encouraging news on the state of the economy. The ISM Manufacturing Index broke above the 50 mark for the first time in 16 months, a strong expansion indicator. The release showed manufacturing activity is finding a firmer footing alongside an uptick in current production and a rebound in new orders. The Bank of Canada had no shortage of new developments to digest this week. We saw a labor market update for the month of March, along with a pulse check on business sentiment and international trade data. As the dust settles on the week, markets have increased their bets that the BOC will pull the trigger for our first rate cut in June. And for the week ahead, the publication of the March CPI report for the US will attract a lot of attention. The energy component is likely to have a positive impact on the headline index given the rise in gasoline prices over the last month. In Canada, all eyes will be on the central bank's monetary policy meeting on Wednesday, and the BOC is set to leave its benchmark rate unchanged at 5%, where it has been since July 2023. However, inflation data over the last 2 months has been extremely encouraging, with most measures starting to trend lower. We'll see how this data will impact the BOC's forecast going forward. And on the corporate earnings front, some big releases this week include BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Delta Airlines. Certainly no shortage of excitement in the markets this last week, with more to come in the week ahead. As always, thank you for watching and see you soon.